Hello, and welcome to Down the Rabbit Hole. Today, we are on episode 200. Can you believe that? I can't believe that. After the last episode, it's like I figured people would have just gave up on me, but I'm glad to see a few people that keep coming back. Y'all make my day. If you're new here, hit that like button or that bell for notifications. Also, please subscribe. Help a girl out. So, today, we're going to be talking about Prince Alfred, who was born August 6, 1844 at Windsor Castle to the reigning British monarch Queen Victoria and her husband Prince Albert. He was the second son and fourth child. He was also Duke of Edinburgh from 1866 until his maternal uncle, Orange II, after reigning Duke of Saxe Coburg and Gotha in the German Empire. Now, he was nicknamed Alfie, which I absolutely love that nickname, by the way. If you're gonna name someone Alfred, Alfie is adorable. I like it. It also reminds me of the Little Rascals. Now, he was second in line of succession to the British throne behind his elder brother Albert Edward, Prince of Wales. He was baptized by the Archbishop of Canterbury at a private chapel in Windsor Castle on September 6, 1844. His godparents were his mom's first cousin, Prince George of Cambridge, um, his paternal aunt, the Duchess of Saxe Coburg and Gotha, um, as well. Now, Alfred remains Alfred remains second in line to the British throne from his birth until January 1864, when his older brother Albert Edward and sister-in-law Alexandra had their first child, Prince Albert Victor. And Alfred became first in line to the throne as Albert Edward and Alexandra continued to have children. He was further demoted in order of succession. Now let's talk about him entering the Royal Navy, because that seems to be a career path for anybody in the royal family for some reason. Now, in 1856, when he reached the age of 12, it was decided that Prince Alfred, in accordance with his own wishes, should enter the Royal Navy. A separate establishment was assigned to him, and he passed a special entrance examination in July 1858, and he was appointed to a naval cadet of the HMS Euralis at the age of 14. Now, that sounds a little young, but I guess joining the military young at that age, completely something you did. Nowadays, you had to be 18 to join, which is a good thing. Because imagine if we had kids joining the military now, how many decisions would be made? Come to think of it, might have some more decisions being made on that end. But in July of 1860, while on the ship, Alfred paid an official visit to Cape Colony and made a very favorable impression both on the colonials and on the native chiefs. He took part in the hunt for a hartebeest hope, resulting in the slaughter of a large number of game animals. Now, following the expulsion of King Otto of Greece in 1862, he was chosen to succeed him, but the British government would block plans for him, as I talked about in the George I video. So, first Alfred remained in the Navy and was promoted to lieutenant February 24th, 1863, serving under his half cousin's Count Galatian on the corvette of the HMS Raccoon. Sorry, that's just funny. Now, Galatian's son recalled his father as saying that the prince, although shaping well as a sailor, was of somewhat wayward disposition at that period, and his high spirits that once held him into minor troubles with authorities. Now, he was promoted to captain February 23rd, 1866, and he was appointed to the command of the frigate HMS Galatia in July 1867. Now, Lord Charles Beresford described him as having a great natural ability of handling a fleet, and noted that he would have made a first-class fighting admiral. Now, let's talk about him as the Duke of Edinburgh. I would talk about it. I would love to go to Edinburgh so bad, but anyway, that's beside the point, right? Um, so while he was still in command of the Galatia, the Duke started from Plymouth on January 24th, 1867, for his voyage around the world. On June 7, 1867, he left Gibraltar, reached the Cape of Good Hope on July 24th. On August 5th, 1867, the island of Tristan da Cunha paid a royal visit to Cape Town on August 24th, 1867, after landing in at Simonstown a while earlier, and he landed in Glenelg, Glenelg, South Australia, on October 31st, 1867. Being the first member of the royal family to visit Australia, he was received with great enthusiasm. And during his stay of nearly 5 months, he visited Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, and Tasmania. Several institutions, including Prince Alfred College, the Alfred Hospital, and the Prince Alfred Hospital, was named in his honor. On March 12, 1868, on his second visit to Sydney, Alfred was visited by Sir William Manning, president of the Sydney Sailors' Home. And at the function, he was wounded in the back for a revolver fired by Henry James O'Farrell. The shot, fired at point blank range, ricocheted off one of his metal clips and onto his trousers, missing his spine. He was tended to for the next 2 weeks by 6 nurses trained by Florence Nightingale and led by matron Lucy Osborne, who had just arrived in Australia February 1868. Um, in his violent struggles during which Alfred was shot, William Farrell had managed to wrest a gun away from O'Farrell until bystanders assisted. Now, Farrell, a master of Masonic Lodge, had helped organize the picnic in honor of the Duke's visit and was presented with a gold watch for securing his life. Another bystander was wounded at foot from the second shot. Now, O'Farrell was arrested at the scene, quickly tried and convicted and hanged April 21st, 1868. On the evening of March 23rd, 1868, the most influential people of Sydney voted for his memorial to be erected. Now, Alfred soon recovered from his injury and was able to resume command of his ship and return home in early April 1868. He reached Spithead on June 26, 1868, after an absence of 17 months, and he visited Hawaii in 1869, where he spent time with the royal family there, where he was presented with lace upon arrival. And he was also the first member of the royal family to visit New Zealand, arriving in 1869 on the HMS Galatia, where he spent a month living in Parkaranga. He also became the first European prince to visit Japan on September 4th, 1869. And he was received at an audience by the teenage Emperor Meiji in Tokyo. Now, the Duke's next voyage was to India, where he arrived in December 1869, and followed the visiting year. In both countries at Hong Kong, which he visited on the way, he was also the first British prince to set foot on the country. The native rulers of India, with one another in the magnificence of entertainers during this stay of 3 months. Now, in Ceylon, there was a reputation given for him by the request of the British. He was in British. Now, let's talk about, of course, it's time to talk about marriage. We can't talk about the royal family without talking about their potential matches in royal marriage, right? In 1862, Queen Victoria wrote to Victoria, Princess Royal, that she wanted Alfred to marry. Um, Princess Dagmar of Denmark, and she wrote, I can hear the Emperor of Russia has not given up his intention of asking for Alex or Dagmar for his son, and I should be very sorry if anything were decided for Dagmar. before you had seen her, as if it would be your only chance, Alfie. However, she decided against the match because of Germany's anger toward Denmark over the disputed territories of Schleswig-Holstein, especially since Alfred was the heir to Coburg. And since she wrote to Princess Victoria, respecting Dagmar, I do not wish for her to be killed for Alfie. Let the Emperor have her. So, Dagmar was initially engaged to Tsar Nicholas. However, he died April 22nd, 1865, in the presence of his parents, brothers, and Dagmar. Now, his last wish was for Dagmar would be marry his younger brother, the future Alexander III. And Alexander and Dagmar did marry. Therefore, she did become the Empress of Russia. Now, the Queen considered Grand Duchess Olga Konstantinova of Russia as a potential wife for Alfred, and um, but yes. Now, let's talk about his marriage. Who did he end up marrying? Well, um, during a visit to see his sister Alice in August 1868, he would meet Grand Duchess Maria Alexandrova Drovna of Russia, who was then 14. And Princess Alice was married to Maria Alexandrova's first cousin. The Grand Duchess was visiting her maternal relatives, and the Princess of Battenberg at Drogenham. Now, on January 23rd, 1874, the Duke of Edinburgh married Maria Alexandrovna, the second only surviving daughter of Emperor Alexander II of Russia. And his first wife, Princess Marie of Hesse and Bahrain, daughter of Louis II, Grand Duke of Hesse and Bahrain, and Princess Wilhelmine of Baden at the Winter Palace in St. Petersburg. To commemorate the occasion, the English bakery Peak Springs made the now internationally popular Marie biscuits, which with the Duchess name imprinted on the top. Now, the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh made their public entry into London on March 12th. And the marriage, however, was not a happy one, and the bride was thought to be haughty by London society. She was surprised to discover that she had to yield in precedence to Princess of Wales, all of Queen Victoria's daughters, and demanded that she take precedence before Princess of Wales, the future Queen Alexandra, because she considered the Princess of Wales family, but to be inferior to her own. And Queen Victoria refused this demand, yet granted her precedence immediately after the Princess of Wales. Her father gave the then staggered sum of £100,000 as a dowry, plus an annual allowance of 32,000. Now, let's talk about the flag ring, okay? Um, Alfred was stationed in Malta for several years, and his third child, Victoria Melita, was born in April 1876. In Alfred's last command prior to promotion of the flag ring would be captain of the HMS Black Prince in 1878. When he represented the crown during the installation of the John Campbell Marquess of Lorne in the Governor General of Canada. Now, Alfred was subsequently promoted Rear Admiral upon his return to London in relief December 30th, 1878. Um, he would become the Admiral Superintendent of Naval Reserves, raising flags aboard in corvettes of the corvette HMS Penelope of November 1879. He was promoted to Vice Admiral November 10th, 1882. Um, and he was given command of the Channel Quadrum with his flag aboard the armor ship, the HMS Minotaur, in December 1883. He became commander-in-chief of the Mediterranean Fleet with his flag aboard the armored ship HMS Alexandra in 1886, and having been promoted to admiral in October 18th, 1887, he was went on to be commander-in-chief. Plymouth in August 1890. He was promoted to Admiral of the Fleet on June 6, 1893. Now, Alfred was very fond of music and took a prominent part in establishing the Royal College of Music. And he has been a keen violinist, but with little skill. And at a dinner party he was given by one of his brothers, he was persuaded to play. Now, let's talk about the Duke of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. So, on the death of his uncle Ernst II, the Duke of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha, on August 22nd, 1893, the duchy fell into the Duke of Edinburgh, since his brother, the Prince of Wales, renounced his right to the succession before he married. And there he was surrendered his British allowance of 15,000 euros a year, and this was in the House of Lords in the Privy Council, but he retained 10,000 euros granted on his marriage to maintain Clarence House and his London residence. At first regarded him as the colonist of the Duchy of Foreigner, he gradually became popular, and by the time of his death in 1900, he generally won the good opinion of his subjects. Now, Alfred and Maria's only son, Alfred, who was the hereditary prince of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, became involved in a scandal involving a mistress and apparently shot himself in January of 1899 in the midst of his parents' 25th wedding anniversary of a celebration of the Schloss Friedstein in Gotha. He survived, and his embarrassed mom sent him to Marin to recover. However, he died there 2 weeks after on February 6th. His father was devastated. Let's talk about his death now. Um, Alfred would die of throat cancer July 30th, 1900. Um, and owned the lodge adjacent of the Schloss Rosenay of the ducal summer residence just north of Coburg. As his younger brother, Prince Arthur, Duke of Connaught and Stratton, and his nephew Prince Arthur had renounced their succession rights to the throne, Alfred was succeeded by Prince Charles Edward, Duke of Albany, the posthumous son of his youngest brother, Prince Leopold, Duke of Albany. Now, he was survived by his mom, Victoria, who had already outlived two of her children, Alice and Leopold, and she died 6 months later. Victoria dedicated a memorial in the form of Celtic across Alfred's graves at Balmoral Castle, where he was erected shortly before his death. But that is it for this episode. You can join me next time as we are going to be talking about Princess Louise. Y'all have a great day and hopefully a happy Thanksgiving if I can get this episode out before then.